Well, guys, we are back here yet again this week. I guess the wrestling gods just want us to release more content and just to talk because it just seems like more and more shit just keeps happening this week. Which I wish it was under better circumstances, and not so shitty as the Jeff Hardy situation and as kind of groundbreaking in a most likely negative way. With the story that we're obviously going to be getting to here in a moment. But as always, thank you guys so much for checking out the pod, whether you're downloading, streaming, listening, wherever that may be on whatever service. I truly, truly appreciate it. And I, like you guys have heard, I like to check out the location of the downloads and shit that the podcast gets. So I just wanted to shout out this one listener in the Isle of Man, which I thought was dope as fuck. To be honest with you, pardon my ignorance, but I had never even heard of that in the past, of the country and in the area, so I had to look it up. And I was just fascinated. So shout out to whoever you are in the Isle of Man. I appreciate you listening to the pod, and we see you out there. So again, that was just pretty cool. And like I said, thank you guys, wherever you are, for checking out the pod. There are a ton of podcasts out there, especially wrestling ones nowadays. So it is truly, truly appreciated. But I will get right to the core of the matter today, which is, of course, regarding the breaking news surrounding Vince McMahon and WWE and John Laurinaitis. The Wall Street Journal released a report yesterday stating the investigation is ongoing and yeah, there's just a shit ton of information, guys, so I'm just, like I said, going to get right into it. And the information that I'm going to be reading directly from is, again, from Fightful.com. I couldn't get access to the actual Wall Street Journal page itself. I do not have a membership, so there's that. So like I said, I will be reading it right from Fightful.com, so shout out to them for the transcription and their take from the reporting itself. So I am going to read most of their reporting word for word, so like I said, if you are looking for more information, and especially where I got my sources from, you can definitely head to Fightful.com and read the report. This is from yesterday, so if you're looking for it specifically, it was from June 15th of, obviously, 2022. So it starts off saying Vince McMahon is under investigation by the WWE board, according to a report by the Wall Street Journal, and that's hyperlinked. But again, like I said, it takes you to the actual, obviously, Wall Street Journal page, but you have to have a membership, which sucks, because I wanted to, obviously, read the article from them. But moving on, again, according to a report by the Wall Street Journal, the WWE board is investigating a secret $3 million settlement that Vince McMahon reportedly agreed to pay to a departing employee with whom he allegedly had an affair, according to documents and people familiar with the board inquiry. A January 2022 separation agreement reportedly bars the now former employee, who was hired as a paralegal in 2019, from discussing her relationship with Mr. McMahon or disparaging him. The investigation reportedly began in April when other older non-disclosure agreements involving claims by former female WWE employees of misconduct by Mr. Laurinaitis and John Laurinaitis, Mr. McMahon and John Laurinaitis, the head of talent relations at WWE. The Wall Street Journal couldn't determine how many previous agreements were being, quote, scrutinized, unquote. Board members reportedly learned of the $3 million agreement in a series of anonymous emails they received from someone who said the former WWE paralegal was a friend. The first email sent to board members on March 30th of this year alleged that Mr. McMahon initially hired the woman at a salary of $100,000 but increased it to $200,000 after beginning a sexual relationship with her. The email to the board also alleged that Mr. McMahon, quote, gave her like a toy to Mr. Laurinaitis. Side note here, this is me actually speaking, that's just fucking disgusting and insane. And they did later on, which I'm skipping a lot, but they did later on all agree and at least acknowledge that this was consensual. So, you know, I don't want to be judgmental or anything like that, but just the wording of that and the phrasing of that is just so disparaging to her, you know, to use that word appropriately here. It's just, yeah. But moving on here, the article from Fightful.com continues. The board is investigating the allegations in the email. The people familiar with the inquiry said the former employee reportedly moved from the legal department in 2021 to become an assistant to Mr. Laurinaitis. Quote, my friend was so scared, so she quit after Vince McMahon and lawyer Jerry paid her millions of dollars to shut up, unquote. The initial email said to the board, referring to Mr. McMahon's longtime lawyer, Mr. McDivitt, who negotiated the deal, according to people familiar with the board inquiry. Outside counsel for the board is reportedly still collecting information from the other NDAs, which are non-disclosure agreements, but has determined that the payments totaled in the millions of dollars. The board's preliminary findings reportedly are that Mr. McMahon used personal funds to pay the former female employees who signed the agreements, including the one involving allegations against Mr. Laurinaitis. The directors reportedly received a copy of the $3 million agreement from one of Mr. McMahon's lawyers on June 12th. One person familiar with the inquiry said the non-disclosure agreement provided an upfront payment of $1 million to the former employee, with the remaining $2 million to be doled out over a period of 5 years, people familiar with the deal said. A WWE spokesperson said the company is cooperating fully with the board inquiry and that the relationship with the ex-paralegal was consensual, as I've referenced before. He added that the company takes the allegations seriously and is dealing with them appropriately. Near the outset of the inquiry, lawyers for the independent directors asked WWE, Mr. McMahon, and Mr. Laurinaitis to turn over complaints or allegations about any relationships the executives may have had with company employees, one of the people said. In recent days, the investigators reportedly learned of the other non-disclosure agreements involving allegations against McMahon and Laurinaitis. Mr. McMahon and Mr. Laurinaitis did not respond to requests for comment by the Wall Street Journal. In a letter to the Wall Street Journal, Mr. McMahon's attorney, Jerry McDevitt, said that the former paralegal hadn't made any claims of harassment against Mr. McMahon and that, quote, WWE did not pay any monies, unquote, to the ex-employee, quote, on her departure, unquote. The board's 8 independent directors have retained New York-based law firm Simpson, Thatcher, and Bartlett, LLP, to conduct the investigation, and Fightful concluded with Fightful will continue to update fans on the investigation as more is known, which they have done so going forward, which we'll get to here in a second. But man, guys, that is something. That is pretty groundbreaking in a lot of ways. I think maybe as morbid and as negative as this may sound, but part of me is just is scared that this is the beginning, and I say scared, and maybe scared is not the right word, but just maybe concerned that this is just the cracks, and what we are going to see is maybe not another version to the size of like the Me Too movement or the Speak Out movement or anything like that, but I'm just kind of scared, because the WWE has been around for a lot of years. Vince has obviously been around for a lot of years, and we, over the past 5, 10, 15 years, have learned a lot about a lot of powerful guys and a lot of rich guys and what they do and how they get away with shit and how it's just covered up just because they have money and they have resources and they have access to a lot of things and they know people in the right places. So when I say that, I don't mean that in the concern for WWE, really, even though I love wrestling and WWE is obviously what sparked that love for me. Putting that, because that, in my opinion, is completely separate to this situation and what Vince is doing. That the product and what we see on TV has absolutely nothing to do with this. And so when I say that, I mean it's scary to think of what could have been happening of all these years, And again, I am going to the worst case scenario, the drastic end of all this, just to kind of get that out of the way, devil's advocate, you know what I mean? But this could be the start of a lot of things and a lot of people coming forward, and this could be, like I was saying, someone, God forbid, if they were either harassed or something had gone much worse or much darker than what appears to have just been a consensual relationship with this individual. If anything did happen and there are any victims out there or anything like that, I hope that if that is the case, that, they do what they need to do and they do find the help, and if they need to come forward, they do. So I say that in that regard because, sadly enough to say, normally when there's smoke, there's fire. But again, I say all that to get that out of the way because there's a few things with this, in my opinion, that is just kind of interesting and kind of stands out. And again, like I don't pretend to sit here and know much of anything about the legal system, especially here in the U.S. It's just baffling to me, a lot of things, and I'm not even going to get into that. But I am probably a beginner when it may be a little bit of, I don't want to say medium of interest, or not interest, of experience rather, when it comes to like non-disclosure agreements and what they actually entail and what they can legally cover and things like that. Obviously a crime, I'm pretty sure, is not one of them. So I think the part where it says, and that Jerry McDevitt was certain to point out that the former paralegal, who was the individual, the female that was in the relationship with Mr. McMahon and Mr. Laurinaitis, John Laurinaitis, that individual, he stated that, well, first he stated that she hadn't made any claims of harassment against Mr. McMahon and that WWE did not pay any monies, which is completely separate at this point right now, in this respect at least. So if that's the case, if it was just a purely consensual relationship that started off, maybe she got hired and it started off consensual between her and Vince, and then things escalate, maybe not escalated is the right word, but things progressed to, I don't know, I don't want to think about it and get into it because it's whatever. But the part where it says that he handed her, or what was the exact, gave her like a toy to Mr. Laurinaitis, to John Laurinaitis. It's just, that's what kind of is unsettling to me and is unnerving to me and concerning, because that specific wording normally isn't something you would say for something that you were really enjoying, right? It's something that you really wouldn't be taking a part of. Maybe not something that you weren't necessarily, I don't know, I'm not even going to get into that, but because we don't know any information, we don't know the specifics about this. This is still in the very, very early and beginning phases. My point is there's a lot that could go one way or another. And at the end of the day, my hope and my, I guess, main, not concern, but my main focus and hope, I guess, it would just be that the paralegal, the individual, the lady who was involved in the situation is okay. You know what I mean? And that this news becoming mainstream, which it obviously has and is most likely going to continue to be, with everything I mean, God forbid it's the fucking Wall Street Journal, guys. Like, it's not just, this isn't just like us wrestling fans talking about it, right? Or just some news that's breaking in the wrestling world and in our little dirt sheets and shit like that. Like, this is big time news. This is the stock market involved. This is the board of directors getting involved. Like, this is big shit, So this has the potential to, and again, I'm going to be going to a completely other end of this, but this has the potential to really shake WWE as we know it and change things up, and it could potentially cost Vince his spot, and I'll get into that maybe a little bit more in a second here. But just to kind of circle back to what my original point was, I just hope that all of this becoming mainstream news and being referenced and talked about now isn't negatively impacting her and isn't bringing up obviously old wounds and maybe things that weren't obviously the best of memories for her. So I just hope that she's okay. Whoever you are, we don't need to know who you are unless you obviously want to come forward. Then absolutely we'll support you. But yeah, it's just it's one of those things, and it's fucked up, like. But sadly enough, like I was saying earlier, like it's kind of getting to the point where you really don't even want to be fans of anyone nowadays because you're scared to really see, like, okay, like, I'm a fan of you now, but in 20 years, and again, I'm not sitting on some high Porsche here or anything like that. Like, I have done some dumb shit in the past, some ignorant shit, some fucked up shit, and some shit that I would love to undo and just to smack myself in the face for and be like, stop, or just random shit that I just wish, I could go back and take back. I hope we all have at least one thing that we would do differently. But again, I mean, God, it's never been anything like this, at least for me. But like, it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things, like I said, I had always kind of hoped and I guess never really thought would be a thing, but it's kind of one of those things where, like I said, and I'm not going to name any names here, but like you all know, especially if you're here in the U.S., the scandals that have broke loose, the billionaires who have gone to jail, and been charged with sex scandals and things like that. Like, again, not saying that that's what this is or anything like that, at least as of right now. But yeah, dude, it has the potential to be so many different things, or it could be just as innocent as, I don't want to say as innocent, but just as maybe simple as this is. Like, yes, there is that NDA in play. She got her portion of the money, and she's still set to get the remaining 2 portion over a period of 5 years. So whatever those increments are in that time frame, yeah, like I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Unless that in the whole point of this coming out, and then the individual, the anonymous tipster, I guess you would call them, who had said, quote, "My friend was so scared, so she quit after Vince McMahon and lawyer Jerry paid her millions of dollars to shut up." It's like, why was she scared? You know, if you're in a consensual relationship, why are you scared? That doesn't sound very consensual to me, you know? So, and that's why it gets really tricky and sticky with what you can say, you know what I mean, without really knowing the facts. And it's, you don't want to speculate either, because you don't want to wrongly accuse anyone, and it very well could have, I don't know, it's just, you don't want to say anything that's wrong without having all the facts is the long and short of it. But from the information that we have here from the report, it doesn't look good with the quotes and just the information that we do have here. So I don't know, guys. And when I say that it has the potential to really shake WWE and potentially remove Vince from power, I know that's extreme, but well, especially if this is just the beginning, God forbid. But if there is true concern that he used WWE monies to pay for this, then that obviously is a huge, huge conflict of interest amongst other things, and will definitely have repercussions. Especially when you think back to it, like, and this obviously probably doesn't have anything directly related to it, but if we do find out that the money that was paid to this former employee was directly from a WWE business account and not Vince McMahon's personal consumer account, then that's a big deal, and that's a big, big fucking problem, which we obviously, I'm sure we'll find that out in the few, I would say, probably the few days coming up, because with everyone focusing on this story now and finding out about this story and the investigation already have been conducted, obviously, you know, within a couple months now, it sparks a lot of questions. And then too, it makes you think back to when Stephanie stepped down, right? Of course, she had mentioned it was just due to family reasons, which is pretty obvious with the health of Triple H and everything like that they have been dealing with. Or was she preparing for this? You know, it may have been around the same time, or maybe even if it wasn't. Again, I don't want to allege anything on her or anything like that. She may very well have no fucking idea what was happening, and she just found out when she got an alert on her phone from the Wall Street Journal as well. You know what I mean? It's just interesting timing. You know what I mean? So I don't really know, guys. Until we have more information on that part specifically, it's very interesting though, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say and what you guys have to think about it specifically. But they did have another report that was released today regarding WWE directors and officers being investigated for breach of fiduciary duties. Again, the source that I have here is from Fightful.com, so shout out to them, guys. I appreciate you. They start off by saying another investigation is coming to WWE. Scott and Scott Attorneys at Law put out a press release, which is hyperlinked, announcing the law firm will investigate whether certain directors and officers of WWE breached their fiduciary duties to WWE and its shareholders. The following statement is from Scott and Scott themselves, quote, and it starts off by saying, again, from Scott and Scott, World Wrestling Entertainment Investigation Alert. Scott and Scott Attorneys at Law LLP investigates WWE's directors and officers for breach of fiduciary duties -WWE. Goes on to state New York, parentheses, Business Wire. Scott and Scott Attorneys at Law LLP, a national securities and consumer rights litigation firm, is investigating whether certain directors and officers of World Wrestling Entertainment Inc., parentheses WWE, and then has the New York Stock Exchange tag for WWE, breached their fiduciary duties to WWE and its shareholders. If you are a WWE shareholder, you are encouraged to contact attorney Joe Pettigrew for additional information at 844-818-6982 or jpettigrew at scott-scott.com. Scott & Scott is investigating whether members of WWE's board of directors or senior management failed to manage WWE in an acceptable manner in breach of their fiduciary duties to WWE, and whether WWE and its shareholders have suffered damages as a result. On June 15, 2022, the Wall Street Journal reported that the WWE board was investigating an alleged $3 million settlement that CEO Vince McMahon agreed to pay in January 2022 to a former WWE employee with whom he allegedly had an affair. What you can do: if you are a WWE shareholder, you may have legal claims against WWE's directors and officers. If you wish to discuss this investigation or have questions about this notice or your legal rights, please contact attorney Joe Pettigrew or toll free at 844-818-6982 or jpettigrew at scott-scott.com. And then just goes on to further explain what Scott & Scott Attorneys at Law LLP do, where they are based, and their further contact information. So if you guys are looking for that, you can check out Fightful.com for that specific information, especially if you're a shareholder. I would reach out and see what's going on. I would definitely be intrigued by that as well. But Fightful just concluded this specific post by stating, on Wednesday, the Wall Street Journal, which is hyperlinked, published a report saying the WWE Board of Directors is investigating McMahon on a secret $3 million hush pact regarding an alleged affair, which obviously we just discussed there. And I will say, too, because I was remiss in mentioning it prior to reading this new report, I hope Linda McMahon is okay, too. Obviously, everyone close to Vince is being impacted. If this is an affair and this is him cheating on her, something that was blindsiding to her and she wasn't aware of, that's hard and very difficult to deal with, especially with how long they've been together at this point. And it's just, I couldn't imagine being with someone for that long and having built an empire and just being them and someone in that position and having a partner for that long, and then having them cheat on me, if that's obviously the case. Now, they very well could be separated and he's doing his own thing, she's doing her own thing, but they're just still legally and technically married. But they have an agreement that, to each their own. And if that's the case, then hey, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like, do what you want to do, Vince, in that regard. Or you could be swingers, you know what I mean? Or there's so many possibilities and different relationship types now. You could have, open relationships. There's a shit ton of different ways. I say all that just to say, if that is the case, then hey, he technically didn't do anything wrong in that, like, morally, at least in that regard. Again, now you can, that's not my true opinion or feeling on it, because like I said, we again still don't know the details. And again, like, that's not even something that I myself as a fan need to know, or probably want to know, his specific relationship status and in that regard with Linda. Like, I couldn't imagine sitting here going about my day and wondering what type of arrangement Vince and Linda have. You know what I mean? So, like, it's not that, but I just say that in the hopes that she at least wasn't blindsided. That's all I mean by that, because it would suck for, like I said, her to find out that the dude she's been married to for X amount of years now cheated on her, you know what I mean? And to find out from the fucking Wall Street Journal, nonetheless. Which obviously they found out probably a few months ago. But yeah, that's, again, guys, we can go down so many rabbit holes with this. It's just insane, even with the lack of it's kind of crazy, because we have a ton of information and then we have such lack of information in the other hand. So it's very interesting. These two cases now, because the first one was obviously just focusing on Vince and John Laurinaitis as well. But this second report is another separate investigation, it looks like, obviously, going after WWE specifically. So there's a lot going on in the world of WWE right now, and it's scary times if you're WWE management and you're WWE upper executives and you've been doing shady shit for years now. Everything happens for a reason, and everything has full circle and comes for a full circle. So again, I don't sit here and wish any negativity or anything negative or any bad vibes or anything on anyone, because I truly am a believer in karma. So I feel whatever you put out is what you get in to, to certain extents and whatnot. But yeah, man, you can't expect to do shady shit and fucked up shit and morally wrong things or illegal things and crimes and expect to get away for it forever. Some people do, and that's one thing. And look, again, like I don't judge people, but when you do shit like this that hurts other people, or if you're negatively impacting other people or taking advantage of people, then yeah, obviously, then that's a fucking problem. So I think here is just a lot of common sense, guys. And until we get more information, that's all I can really say and speculate on at this point. But it's just fucking fascinating, guys. And who knew when we started this week that it was going to be so crazy and so eventful, sadly enough. But again, I hope you guys are at least having a good week so far. Enjoyed AEW Dynamite last night. We will definitely get into that this weekend and whatever else may come and break over the next 24, 48 hours. But hang in there, guys. We will chat in a couple days, and I hope you have a good night.